Zohran Mamdani, the mayor of New York City, just got an $8 billion bailout from the state to balance his budget. Mamdani campaigned on taxing the rich to fix the city's finances himself. That didn't happen. Albany wrote the check instead. So what's actually happening in New York City right now, and is Zohran Mamdani doing what he said he would? Let's go through the record. Zohran Mamdani was born in Kampala, Uganda in 1991, the son of a Columbia University academic and an acclaimed filmmaker. The family moved to New York when he was 7. He attended the Bronx High School of Science, then Bowdoin College, majoring in Africana Studies and co-founding a chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine. After college, he worked as a housing counselor helping prevent evictions, then on political campaigns for progressive candidates. He was elected to the New York State Assembly in 2020, representing Astoria, Queens, becoming a naturalized U.S. citizen in 2018, just 3 years before taking that seat. In November 2005, running as a Democratic Socialist and member of the Democratic Socialists of America, he defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo to become the 112th mayor of New York City, the city's first Muslim mayor, first Indian American mayor, and youngest in generations. He was sworn in January 1, 2026, taking his oath on a Quran. There's also this. Since 2018, Mamdani lived in a rent-stabilized one-bedroom apartment in Astoria, paying around $2,300 a month. Rent-stabilized units are meant to protect lower-income tenants from market-rate rent hikes. Mamdani held on to his while earning a $142,000 state assembly salary plus stipends, with financially successful parents of his own. He said he didn't realize at the time he got it that it was rent-stabilized. When he moved out after the election, the same apartment re-rented for $3,100 a month, 35% more than what he'd been paying, meaning his rate had been well below what the law even allowed. Critics, including Cuomo during the campaign, called it a clear example of someone benefiting from a system meant for people with far less. Is this a case of rules for thee and not for me? That's the biography. Now let's look at what he promised and what's actually happened since. Mamdani campaigned hard on one core promise: raise taxes on the wealthy and on corporations to fund the city's priorities. Free buses, free childcare, frozen rents, city-owned grocery stores, without asking working people to sacrifice. In January 2026, weeks into office, he announced the city was facing a $12 billion budget deficit. His plan to close it relied on $9 billion in new personal and corporate income tax increases, the tax the rich plan he ran on. State lawmakers didn't approve those tax hikes. Instead, Governor Kathy Hochul in Albany stepped in with a state bailout, over $8 billion in gap-closing support across 2 fiscal years, with some reporting putting the total state assistance package as high as $28 billion once you include pension payment delays and other support. The deal also added a new pied-à-terre tax. Pied-à-terre is French for a secondary home someone keeps in the city without living there full-time. On second homes worth over $5 million, expected to raise about $500 million. When Mamdani announced the budget was balanced, he credited it to taxing the rich and making government more efficient. He did not lead with the multi-billion-dollar state bailout that actually made that balance possible. And that framing drew immediate pushback, including from fiscal watchdogs who pointed out the math doesn't support the claim. So the core promise, fix the city's finances by taxing the wealthy, didn't happen the way he said it would. New York State taxpayers picked up the difference. Here's the part that matters most for anyone who lives or works in New York long term. According to New York's own Department of Taxation and Finance, the top 1% of earners pay somewhere between 41% and 45% of all state income tax revenue. In the city specifically, the top 1% pays roughly a third of city income tax revenue. That's not a fringe statistic, it's the state's own data. And that top slice is shrinking. Between 2010 and 2022, New York's share of the nation's millionaires fell from 12.7% to 8.7%, according to a Citizens Budget Commission study, which estimated the lost tax revenue at nearly $11 billion for 2022 alone. More recent IRS data shows Manhattan lost close to $922 million in adjusted gross income between 2022 and 2023, as higher earners left for lower tax states like Florida and Texas, even while the borough gained more total tax filers than any county in the country. More people, less money. Citadel founder Ken Griffin has publicly criticized the city's new pied-à-terre tax and said he's moving business operations to lower tax states, part of a trend some are calling Wall Street South. To be fair, not every economist agrees this adds up to a crisis. Researchers who've studied past millionaire tax hikes elsewhere argue the predicted mass exodus usually doesn't fully materialize, and that New York's average tax burden is closer to the national norm than the highest in the country framing suggests. That's a real academic debate worth knowing exists. One more story breaking right now. Mamdani has said publicly, including in a New York Times interview, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has an international criminal court warrant against him, belongs in The Hague, and that his administration is in active conversation with the city's law department about acting on that warrant if Netanyahu visits New York for the UN General Assembly in September. Legal experts say Netanyahu likely has head of state immunity blocking any such action, and the U.S. ambassador to the UN called the comments political theater. President Trump has stated Netanyahu will not be arrested on U.S. soil. Mamdani has stood by his comments as of this week. Here's where I land, and I'll say clearly, this next part is my opinion, not a reported fact. Mamdani ran as a democratic socialist, but when the state, not his own tax plan, is what actually balanced the budget when the city's top earners and their tax dollars are already leaving at a documented rate, and when the mayor is spending political capital on an international dispute with no legal authority behind it, instead of the fiscal crisis in front of him, I think it's fair to ask whether the socialist label tells you what's actually driving his decisions, or whether it's simpler than that, self-interest with good branding. And here's my honest opinion on the bigger picture. History keeps teaching the same lesson about socialism, and I think this city may be relearning it in real time. Margaret Thatcher put it better than I can. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. New York didn't run out gracefully. It ran out and got bailed out. Redistribution without production doesn't create wealth. It just moves it around until there's nothing left to move. If that's the model actually driving the decisions here, it's not just an ideology. It's a countdown clock. And the city's top earners are the ones deciding how fast it ticks by choosing whether to stay or leave. That's not an answer. It's a question worth asking with the facts in front of you. What say you? So here's what I want to know from you. Based on his actual record, not the label, the record, is Zohran Mamdani governing like a pragmatist who inherited a mess, or like an ideologue who's letting New York City pay the price for it? What say you? New Yorkers are leaving for good. Are you next? Drop your answer in the comments. I look at every one. If you want the next story in this series, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.